Hello viewers, welcome to Wobility platform. Wobility platform is a platform that tells you the story as it is. You know, Eugene, the state of Oregon, has been trying to see how the voices of the people in our community are being heard and their stories are being shared. But today we are moving out of Eugene, state of Oregon, to one beautiful country, a country with a hard currency. And this is England. And we are going to meet a wonderful person, the most senior persons among many more women with disabilities around the world. And she is going to talk to us how things and how we as the young generation could navigate our path within this challenging time. Viewers, you know, as we do in our program, our guests will tell us who they are. Fellow listeners, listen very carefully and get the gist. Hello.
Hello,
Welcome
Ruth.
to Wobility platform.
Thank you.
Yeah, and who are you?
Well, I'm Janet Price. I'm living in Liverpool in the UK at the moment.
Thank you for accepting to be here at Wobility platform. And we would love to hear your story and how that could be able to impact the lives of many more women with disability. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Ruth. Well, it's my pleasure to be here with you and to be able to spend some time with you. So what to tell you? Okay, well, Ruth asked me to tell you a little bit about my background and how I became involved in disability politics. More years ago than, probably about 40 years ago, I was training as a medical doctor in the UK. And I was involved in feminist politics at the time, both locally in the UK, but also with refugee politics. It was the time that a very large number of Chileans had come over to the UK, to the city I was living, Sheffield, because of the coup in Chile. And it was a very global network of women, a wide diversity in the feminist movement in Sheffield. So as I got more and more involved in feminist politics, I became increasingly unhappy with training as a doctor. And I think a large part of it was that there was very little space for acknowledging the autonomy of patients when they came to see me as a student doctor, the consultant doctors I worked with. They were often given very little information. I mean, women would have major operations on their bodies and not understand what was happening to them, not understand which parts of their body were being taken out, what the impact was going to be on them afterwards. And it just got to the point where I felt that I could not cope with the hierarchies and the inaccuracy, well, really the inability to acknowledge the humanity of the people that were being treated by medics. So although I finished my training, I went off and started working with within the feminist movement with women's groups, and part of that work took me over to India for a while. But I was back in the UK in when would it be? It's about 30 years ago now, and I started to develop weird symptoms, and it was they eventually diagnosed it as multiple sclerosis, and that was when I first recognise that I was going to become disabled, and over the years that it's affected my mobility, my sensory system, a range of ways. But I despite that, or along with it, possibly because of it, I live a very full life. Disability is a strange thing, and it can give you new opportunities as well as new limitations.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you for sharing your story. And, it has not been an easy journey. We all know that. But for how long have you been with a disability so far?
well, it's about 30 years now, and it was really as I became disabled that I started to sort of rethink my politics, because I'd been involved in feminist politics, in queer politics, done work around racism, but I hadn't ever addressed or thought about the impacts of disability. I mean, we now talk about that wide diversity of aspects that go to form the individual, and the different ways in which power interacts. And we look at race, we look at sexuality, we look at gender, but we very clearly look at disability, and as part of the feminist movement then. And I think as many feminists still, I just hadn't considered disability, and much to my shame. But what happened as I became disabled is that I thought, I have to get my head around the politics of this. And so I joined a great disability arts organisation within Liverpool, where I was living then. And that's an organisation that I'm proud still to be involved with to this day. But the woman who was CEO of the organisation, Ruth, it was really her who gave me my training in disability politics, and I owe a great deal to her.
Yeah, okay. So nice to get that. You have a transition from when you were not a disabled woman and when you become a disabled woman. And now you are really advocating for certain things to be improved for persons with challenges, various kinds of challenges in the art world. So what can you tell as um, as a difference in your work life when you were not a disabled person and now that you're a disabled person?
I think one of what thinking about disability politics and learning about it has taught me, I think there's probably two fundamental things. The first is that disability as it fundamentally exists in the world, so much of the impact of the problems we face as disabled people is down to the prejudice and the discrimination we
Yeah.
experienced around us, the lack of access to places, the prejudice that people feel towards us, and that works differently for different disabilities. There's certain sorts of prejudice, assuming that deaf people are stupid, assuming that people with epilepsy may be dangerous. I mean, all sorts of weird and very inappropriate and incorrect knowledge that people think they hold about disability, or views that they hold, that really has a major negative impact upon the lives of disabled people.
Yeah, that is so correct. And the reason why I ask this is because, we have this right thing that human rights are disabled rights are human rights. But
Mm,
with platforms, with the various platforms, if you don't have any challenge, you don't see to zoom through that lines of thought. So when
mm,
we find people who have been able to move through this journey, we are so interested because we need to infiltrate all the platforms to let them know that despite of our situations, we can be involved in one way or the other with this kind of situation, and this is how we could handle it. So
mm.
we are so happy you are continuing to be an advocate and helping many more persons to be able to face these challenges. But you have been there for 30 years. What has kept you going?
I think, oh, many things. The fact I'm a political person to my roots, and I need to be actively involved in campaigning, where it's part of what keeps me living and breathing is challenging the injustice I see in the world, and disability injustice is a very large part of what I see around me. I mean, and it spreads out. It spreads into the discrimination that older people, older women face. It affects people with, neurodiverse issues. It it affects people with mobility issues. You walk with a stick and people immediately assume you're old and doddery and you're past it and you're going to have no adventure, no verve, no drive, there's that you can't dance. I mean, watch women with wheelchairs dancing, watch Claire Cunningham, the disabled dancer who dances on crutches. I've seen Claire Cunningham dance on the tops of teacups, and I couldn't, who do you know that can dance on teacups? But this is a disabled woman who dances on teacups. So the disability art that I've been involved in has both given me a great deal of pleasure, but it's also taught me an enormous amount about the capacities, the versatility, the inventiveness, the skills that disabled people have developed, and the way in which looking at the world through a disability lens can teach all of us new things. Although I'm a disabled woman, I've got my disability is largely a motor disability in that I find it difficult to walk, but the experiences of somebody with a sight impairment or a hearing impairment, or who's got a condition that limits their energy, their experiences are very, very different, and there's a lot that I can learn from them. So it's a continuous journey of discovering new things, understanding more about, ways of being in the world, ways of living. And I think one of the things that I found most powerful was understanding that nobody's body is stable. We're all of us living with very uncertain, unstable bodies that are continuously changing. So it's not just that I've got multiple sclerosis, everybody's body changes. And the more you try to hang on to it one way, the more it slips out of your grasp. And so we just have to move with that flow. And that for me has been a real excitement, living with that, learning to live with the changes that I find in my body and learning to understand them more. So I think disability for me is two things. It's partly challenging the prejudice and the discrimination, but the other side of it is learning to understand my body and how that carries me through the world and the way that it changes as I live my life. So two sides that come together into one piece.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you very much for sharing that, because many more women find it very hard to really like navigate into the playground or the play field that we have in the world today. So by that, I would still like to ask you this, if you wouldn't mind. If you, as the most senior woman with disability among us,
Yeah, but
you
okay.
we as women with disability today, we tend to believe that there is no way out for us, and opportunities are difficult to find. So, and many more women are really left behind. Their voices are not heard. So what can you tell some of us as a booster that can move us to other levels in our various community that we find ourselves.
I think some of it is what I would say about any form of politics. Find the people who think like you do, find the people who face similar challenges, share with them your own experiences, listen to what they've lived through, begin to understand much more deeply together what the challenges you face are, and work out together ways you can move forward in the world. Because I think we're always stronger when we're working as a group. You know, it gives us a force and energy, a hope in the world that we can find difficult to sustain on our own. So I think that would be my first and foremost message, and it's one that has kept me going through many hard times. The groups of women that I've known through my life and who've supported me in many different ways.
That yeah, right on.
Yeah. And I think beyond that, you know, disabled women are, you know, as all women, you have many skills, many creativities. There's different ways that you can work. So one of my great joys has been learning about disability arts and the world that the arts opens up to us. But I think just to explore that within a small group, whether it be drumming, whether it be singing together, whether it be writing poetry, whether it be storytelling, just those small acts that are both creative and that build community are really, really important in building a disability culture in the world. And I think the stronger we have of a disability culture, the more we have a place in the world and the more other people recognize that we are part of that broader pattern, both of culture and of the struggle for justice and human rights.
You are so right. I know many more women viewing our page, and as women with disability thinking that all are gone. You listen to the gist, you listen to how she has been able to navigate all this. You will be able to find a way through these our challenging times. Thank you so very much, Janet, for sharing that. And before we go, we would like to let you know that viewers of our page will be able to send us questions. We'll be available to answer them these questions, whatever questions they ask concerning your story or how you can move them in their various capacity.
Happy to answer any question, but also just happy to meet people who join and come onto the page and just, you know, see the building of a community through the work that you're doing, Ruth.
Yeah, thank you very much, Janet. And we know you have been to many other countries and you have been with so many other women. And we support everything you've been doing. And we hope many more women with disability will gain some energy and strength from what you've been doing and move further. So if you have any other thing to share, you feel free to share that. We just have some few seconds to go. So
just to say, I love what you're doing, Ruth. I love what you're creating. I love your dream of a network of disabled women across the world who will come together and talk together and share ideas. And I just think it's a wonderful and really powerful thing, and more strength to you.
thank you very much, Janet. And fellow viewers, this has been Ruth Achinege. You've got the gist all over from the great England. And now is for you to digest it and use it in our community. You know, with Wobility platform, we are here to tell you the story as it is. Wobility is here to stay, and Wobility will keep giving you stories from various backgrounds. Challenge yourself as we navigate the path through these challenging times. Thank you so very much. Thank you. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you again.